Hey, my name is Reese Ellis, and my presentation is on Chapter 1, Providing Safe Food. So, providing safe food is very important, and the reason why we try to provide safe food is to avoid foodborne illnesses. In order to manage a restaurant, you need to be able to not allow foodborne illnesses to take over and have outbreaks within your restaurant. An outbreak can be determined if two or more people get the same symptoms from eating the same dish in a certain restaurant or a certain thing. And foodborne illnesses can be very, very detrimental and cause a lot of money and be very expensive for your business. So lots of problems that may happen and be causes of foodborne illnesses can be time, simply just trying to rush while you're doing or cooking or cleaning, anything like that. If your workers or people that are working in the restaurant are rushing, trying to clean, cook, that can cause foodborne illnesses to take over. Another thing that can cause a problem is language and culture. Languages and culture can cause miscommunications in the workplace, which can cause poor preparation or poor cleaning or anything along that way. So, another thing is literacy and education. How a lot of people in your that may be working for you may not be as educated as others. So that may also cause miscommunications, which can cause not proper food preparation, not proper cleaning, anything along these lines. So that's why you need to be able to know how to prepare and serve food properly to avoid these types of things. So there's also these are like the other things that have to do with foodborne illnesses are pathogens and microorganisms, having unapproved dealer, high risk customers and like elderly and children could also be higher risk and they have a higher likelihood of being infected by not prepared well food. And another big downside of not knowing how to serve your food safely is you're gonna have to pay a lot of money to make sure your staff is retrained and make sure your staff is going to know how to properly prepare the food if you don't teach them right the first time. So the cost of foodborne illnesses, because there's always a cost. Loss in customers, horrible reputation for your restaurant. People are gonna file lawsuits on you. Increased insurance premium. Your staff's not gonna be motivated to work. Your crew's gonna start missing work. And as I said before, you have to retrain your staff because they're not obviously don't know what they're doing if they're cooking food that's getting people sick. And the more detrimental and things that you really want to avoid, which is the main reasons why we need to make sure the food that you prepare is safe, because people may not be able to go to work after they eat your food. People have to pay lots of money to make sure they're healthy if they get sick after eating your food. They may get long-term disabilities and hopefully not. People could actually die if you don't prepare your food properly. So that's not good. So foodborne illnesses occur from mainly contamination, and you just need to learn how to not contaminate your food. Contaminants. There's three main contaminants for when food and food preparation. Biological contaminants, pathogens, viruses, fungi, bacteria, parasites. These are biological contaminants. Other contaminants would be chemical contaminants like sanitizers, cleaners, bleach, anything you're using to clean in the area can be accidentally put on the food, which will be considered a contaminant. It's not making food cleaner, you're just poisoning the food. And another thing is physical contaminants like actual physical things like glass, if your nail pops off, hair, bandage, or anything like that could be a physical contaminant. So, food can become unsafe by being handled incorrectly. Not handled correctly, poor temperatures, bad supplier, not being just being dirty can contaminate your food. So you got to be clean while you're in the workplace. So there's some real main practices that can very easily cause your food to become contaminated and can cause a foodborne illness outbreak. Right? So time temperature abuse. Time temperature abuse is when you leave food, let's say you leave food out. You leave it out that's going to cause your food to become spoiled and will allow it to have, people will get sick from eating that. If you don't reheat your food properly, you can't cut any corners. Or if you don't cool your food properly, these are all things that can cause your food, foodborne illnesses. Another thing, cross contamination. Cross contamination can happen very easily if you're mixing ready to eat foods with foods that are not ready to eat. That can cause cross contamination. Scratching yourself, doing all this thing over food can cause cross contamination. When touching, like you can't touch ready to eat food and just touch non ready to eat food and try to serve it to somebody. That's cross contamination. You're contaminating the food. You're gonna make the food unsafe to be served. Another thing, poor personal hygiene. Someone coughing and sneezing on the food, it's obvious that it will cause it's gonna contaminate the food. The person that is handling the food may have poor personal hygiene. So before you come to work, make sure you're taking a shower, washing your hands. You already know 20 seconds at the minimum washing your hands. Working while sick. If your worker is sick, they have to go home. They cannot continue to work on your food while they're sick. That's just not this. You're gonna obviously setting yourself up for failure if you think you could just have a worker going to work while sick. No, he has to go home, come back when you feel better, because we're not gonna get no one sick. That's gonna cost so much money. We already went over that. Scratching yourself on food will also cause problems and obviously contaminate your food. Another thing, we already know a lot of people don't like to wash dishes and wash their equipment. Poor cleaning and sanitation is also another very key cause that can cause you to have a foodborne illness outbreak. Equipment not being washed, cloths not being sanitized, food contact areas, or just say you only want to wipe it down. No, you can't just wipe it down. It needs to be sanitized completely to make sure there's no more other things that are left on the counters, your equipment, anything of that such needs to be completely sanitized. So now we're going to the next thing. TCS foods. TCS foods are the most risky foods to be served. You must be careful when you're serving TCS foods because TCS foods can be served to high risk populations, like, as we already went over, elderly and young, very young. And people with compromised immune systems are considered high risk customers or this person that you're going to be serving. Examples of TCS foods would be eggs, milk, meat, cheese, just vegetables, baked potatoes, things like that are considered TCS foods. And now we're going to go over the importance of the FDA. The FDA expects all food except for meat, poultry, and eggs. So that means all the food that you eat except for meat, poultry, and eggs. The FDA is going to go about making sure that these things are able to be consumed and are healthy for us to all eat. Regulates all the transportation of all the food that's within state lines, issues food codes, and they also regulate food operations like daycare, schools, vending, food stores, restaurants. FDA makes sure that we're all eating good, and we're all make sure that no one's getting sick. So you have to be FDA approved. We gotta make sure that the FDA makes sure that everything is going all right. Other agencies, other agencies would be considered like the USDA, the U.S. Department of Agriculture. These people check the things that the FDA doesn't. They make sure that poultry, eggs, and meat they check that. They check all the agriculture things like those, and other companies like the CDC and the PHS also assist the FDA and the USDA in completing all their tasks and making sure that everything is going good. So these are all the things that you need to make sure you go about, because when you're owning or constructing or managing a food establishment, you need to make sure that you prevent foodborne illnesses, because you need to make sure that all these things are prevented, because foodborne illnesses can be very detrimental to people that are eating there and their families. It's a lot more to it. So thank you. This is my presentation.